Hello, college football fans, and welcome to episode 211 of College Football Throwdown. I'm your co-host, Alex Schmitz, and today I'm joined as always by my dad, Peter Schmitz.
Hello, Husker fans and college football fans.
Hello, everybody. We are father-son duo here to talk about college football by college football fans for college football fans. And today we'll be talking about our favorite team, the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and their tough loss to USC, as well as what happened in the national world of college football over the weekend. Another coach firing to discuss, to pile on the many corpses from throughout this season, and predict what's happening next week. Right,
exactly.
Yes,
that's going to be a lot as things are getting down to the nitty gritty. It's game 10.
That's right. Somehow it feels like the season just started.
I know.
Yes, it goes by so fast. But before we dive into all that, we got to, of course, open up our cold beverages here, as is our tradition. I got myself a Golden Road Mango Cart, one of my last ones.
And I'm actually drinking something that your mom had purchased. It's Oberon. You're familiar with Oberon, right? But that's typically a summer beverage, and they stop making it once the summer ends. But they have now a fall version of it called Oberon Eclipse, and it's a wheat beer. And I am going to give this one a go.
Okay, very nice. Well, cheers.
Cheers. You know, we're settled in now here to Arizona for our wintertime period, and I am looking forward to. We're going to be taking advantage of being right near Arizona State. We're going to go to a volleyball game on Wednesday night. A top 25 volleyball matchup at Arizona State, and take in our favorite brewery here in the area, Four Peaks Brewing. So we hope to be there on Wednesday afternoon.
Very cool. All right. Well, last podcast, we did give our predictions for the USC game, and we both predicted that Nebraska would lose, but by different margins. I said 42-31 we would lose, and you said 42-21. And to the team's credit, it actually ended up being closer than either of us imagined. We lost 21-17, so only by 4 points, which means Nebraska actually beat the spread. And kind of a funny story, I couldn't watch this one at home this weekend, so I had to go find a bar to watch the game, which was, of course, on Saturday, the same day as Game 7 of the World Series in Major League Baseball, with the Los Angeles Dodgers playing for their survival. So, of course, every bar was filled with, those games, but I managed to find one that had the USC game as well. And when the game ended and we unfortunately lost, I was now invested in the Dodgers game. It was like the 9th inning, so I stayed with a guy that I'd met there who was cheering for the Dodgers, and I got to see the final home run that sealed it for them. And the whole bar erupted when they got the last out, and somebody shot off fireworks in the parking lot afterwards. So it was quite fun.
That's cool. And that went to the 11th inning, right?
It did. It was.
Wow.
I'm not a baseball guy. I had to ask, my partner there some questions about, the specifics of the rules and that sort of thing. But it was, even for me as an outsider, it was definitely an exciting game. The crazy thing is that this guy Yamamoto, who basically pitched like 90 something pitches in the previous game, just the day before, came in as the clutch closer pitcher at the end of the game and threw like another 30 pitches and managed to, get the Blue Jays out. So that was really impressive.
Yeah. He's amazing. Yeah.
But talking about the football side of things, the game got off to a great start where we had, USC elected to get the ball first, even though they won the toss. And, of course, the Memorial Stadium there in Nebraska was completely blacked out. It was a blackout night. All the fans came in black. They repainted the end zones to be black. All the players were dressed in black. So the university was really pushing this one as a special event. And it did look very cool, when they released the black balloons, when we scored a touchdown instead of the traditional red ones and all that. So the atmosphere was really electric, and it was very loud in that stadium. You could tell it kind of rattled USC a bit, where they went 3 and out pretty much right away, and we got the ball back and had a nice methodical drive to score a touchdown to go up early.
Right, and absolutely the all the work that the athletic department did, and of course the fans to show up the way they did. I mean, the student section was completely full all the way to row 100 and whatever for 90 minutes before the game started. So they sat there waiting for that thing to happen. And so the school did a great job of making it an event, putting everything in place. We didn't see it on the TV broadcast, but they again did the drone show thing after the third quarter. And I'm not sure. I haven't seen the tunnel walk video, but I heard rumor that they were going to play Back in Black instead of Cirrus.
Yep, they did.
And I haven't seen that yet, so I need to find that on YouTube and watch it.
Yeah. Just a quick question, I guess, for the future. Since this was such a success, do you think this should become an annual or semi-annual thing that the university does?
I think that that's their plan, is that they want to do it once a year.
Yeah, which, I'm not necessarily into like the Oregon model, right, where they're just constantly, getting new jerseys and stuff because they have the Nike partnership. Obviously I know that's cool for the players, and there can be some cool variations that come from that. But I think doing one special uniform, one special event per year is enough to kind of satiate fans and the players and give them something unique to look forward to. For example, the Tennessee team, which played against Oklahoma this weekend, they had some uniforms I thought were pretty cool, where they were black, but then the numbers and accents on it were orange, their traditional orange color. So it was kind of like a Halloween vibe, which I actually thought looked pretty cool.
Right. Yep. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, like with Nebraska's, they even changed the helmet, right? The N on the helmet was black. The stripe on the helmet was black. I mean, they really went all out. The band got black coats to wear, so that they would be in black. I mean, they did just about everything. They gave all the student section a terrible towel type of thing to, fling in the air. So it's impressive. And that was a heck of an atmosphere. You can't, what? Matt Rule can't expect much more than that as a head coach to have an athletic department and a fan base bring that kind of energy and that kind of investment to make the experience, make the environment so uniquely fun and exciting. So they all did their job. Sadly, I'm going to speak quite a bit about this in this podcast, Alex, is at the end of the day, most of my criticism falls on the coaching staff in this game. Yes, there's players that could have played better. There were some obvious mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's about preparing your team and being ready for the moment. And frankly, Coach Rule and his staff failed to meet the moment.
Yeah. Well, I want to give some praise to John Butler, our defensive coordinator, because we ended up going into halftime up 14-6 with Nebraska getting the ball to start the second half, which was a very good result considering how badly things could have gone for us. We were able to stop them several times, force them into some field goal situations. In one case, it was kind of off of a mistake by USC where we called a timeout and then their guy false started, which pushed them back on a fourth down and kind of forced them into a field goal kick position. But we were doing a good job of slowing down their passing game, and it was actually the worst first half of USC's whole season in terms of their offensive production. So that aspect was going well for us. And then to start the second half, we didn't get to do much on our drive, but then the very first play of USC's drive in the third quarter, we get a great interception based off of a nice read by our player, and we're in great field position all of a sudden to get some points. And then, of course, that leads to the infamous play, the only sack of the day, where Dylan stayed back too long, got sacked by a USC guy, got his leg caught under him, and had to go off the field with a broken fibula, as it turned out, while also fumbling the ball in the process. So we didn't get any points out of the situation, and our quarterback was hurt. And that was the clear turning point in the game.
I would agree. That was the turning point in the game. However, although the results are the results, and at halftime, you can praise the defensive coordinator. However, his scheme was so slanted towards stopping the passing game, and it took USC. I'm very critical of Lincoln. Lincoln Riley could have annihilated us if he had called the game properly. He waited way too long to adjust away from the pass run mix that he had in the first half, and he finally started committing to the running game in the second half, and including running his quarterback, and started moving the ball at will, basically. So it was just foolish for USC to not figure that out sooner. I mean, our defense, that I cannot accept the alignment that we had for big portions of that game. Many times in that game, we had 4 defensive linemen. Then our linebackers would be a full 5 or 6 yards off the ball, right? And if you only have 4 down linemen, you need to have a second level. And then on other plays, we would have all of our linebackers up in there with the linemen, like filling every gap. So there was no second level at all. And so they would crease us. And once they got past that first line of scrimmage, then it ended up being, one of our defensive backs that had to make a tackle, 13, 16, 18 yards down the field. And they didn't do this once or twice. They did it literally a dozen times. And each one of them was, 9 to 25 yards. And you just can't have a defensive scheme that concedes the running game that much. And then, great, you slowed down their passing game. So what? You're not going to win, and they're just damn lucky that Lincoln Riley was way too slow to adjust his offensive play calling to take advantage of what Nebraska's doing. We have to have a defense that can actually play straight up, and we don't.
Right. Well, and I recall one play in particular where even I noticed it was like 3rd and 1, and we only had 4 guys in the box. Like you say, the linebackers were still pretty far back, and I was like, why would you do that on 3rd and 1? Why don't you bring them in, to stop the obvious run play that's coming?
Yeah. There's got to be something in between having your linebackers literally up on the line of scrimmage, taking a gap, and then they get caught up in the wash of that offensive line play, as opposed to being off. Why can't you be off, 3.5 or 4 yards like a normal defense is? That's why you have 3 levels of a defense. You have a line, you have a level that is linebackers, so they're able to attack based on and react based on the flow of the play and where the ball is going, and then you have a secondary. And we seem to choose to have all secondary or no linebackers at all and up on the line of scrimmage. I mean, It's just I don't understand, and I cannot understand what he is trying to do. Now, I get that system that he did today or this past weekend. I would have understood it if we still had Ty Robinson and Nash from last year, because those are guys that could absolutely hold their own, even when they're getting double teamed. They may not make a play, but they could occupy 2 guys and hold their spot. Our guys were just literally getting annihilated with the double teams. Just absurd. And
Right.
I don't know. When you've got a team that pulls, okay, USC was pulling a lot. Sometimes, their entire left side or their entire right side would pull, meaning the guard and the tackle would leave their position on, say, the right hand side of the line of scrimmage, and they would move to the left hand side on the snap of the ball, and then be the lead blockers into a hole. But when you're all up on the line of scrimmage, your linebackers can't flow in that direction. And so they would get around that corner. And because we were making our linebackers take these extra steps, if they even got there at all, those linemen were waiting for them to just knock the heck out of them. And now their running back is, 8-9 yards down the field before he ever gets touched by a Nebraska defender. It was just, in my opinion, horrible schematics for defending the run against a team that clearly has had success running the football and had an athletic quarterback. So to me, that's all on the defensive coordinator. He did not have a good game plan. It looked good early simply because of USC's choices not to take advantage of what was obviously there.
Right. Well, and apparently they have, from what I was reading, in their past couple games, USC hadn't been running their quarterback. Once again, whether that was just a bad choice by Lincoln Riley, I guess, is up to debate. But that probably came as a bit of a surprise to John Butler when they did start to do that. But let me read you some stats here before you get too angry. Okay, USC was 6 of 14 on third downs, 0 of 1 on fourth downs. They got 337 total yards and were 9 of 23 passing it for 135 yards and 202 rushing it on 38 attempts. So that averaged out to 5.3 yards per rush. So
bingo.
Yes, we were skewing our defense in a particular way because we knew that their passing game was a big threat to us. But if our offense, holding an offense as good as USC's to 21 points, I think you got to consider that a W. So if our offense just could have gotten things going in the second half, and if Dylan hadn't gotten injured, I think there's a world where we win this game.
Oh, I totally agree with you, Alex. And I'm being critical about the schematics. Okay. But you're absolutely right. 21 points in this game given up is a total that should have allowed Nebraska to win the football game. And if our offense, so I haven't even I haven't even started on Dana Holgerson yet. Right. But you're absolutely right. Again, Alex, my message about this game is this was so heavily on the coaches. Okay. And there were 3 elements to this. Our defensive coordination. And since you've brought it up, we can transition a little bit. Our offensive coordination. Okay. Again, we ran the ball with a reasonable degree of effectiveness, but I don't think we ran it with creativity. There wasn't a bunch of new types of plays. There wasn't any efforts to try to give some pulling guards and some lead blockers to what we now has been demonstrated to us, having a guy like Emmett Johnson who makes guys miss. If we could actually get him into the second level without having to avoid people in the backfield, can you imagine the yards after contact he would make? I mean, it's just remarkable.
I was just going to say, Emmett had another great game. He had 29 carries for 165 yards and is now past 1,000 rushing yards on the season so far.
Right. I mean, he had a phenomenal game. Even after Raiola went down, and obviously that changed our offensive play calling and our offensive, what was available to us to run. And they knew we were going to run it, right? Because we're protecting a freshman quarterback who's not played. Johnson was still getting yards, and we were getting first downs when they knew we were going to run it on that last drive even. So he was doing really well. And that means to at least to some extent, our offensive line, as beat up as it was and as makeshift as it was, we were creating some holes and holding the blocks long enough to allow him to make some yardage.
Right.
So all that's good, and yet the creativity was not there in our passing game. There was nothing new or no ways to take advantage of Johnson in the running game. It was just more of the same, old, stupid, simple running plays. And then we did try to do a few things on passing, and we did throw it deep a couple times, but Dillon was never able to hit on deep passes. You need to hit on enough of those that they actually have to start respecting it.
Yeah, well, and part of that's on Dillon, but I was going to say, even if it wasn't necessarily new things, I did see Dana making some adjustments to compensate for the fact that our offensive line has struggled and that we can't just have Dillon sit in the pocket, right, and get 5 seconds to throw a great ball. We were rolling him out, to the sidelines intentionally quite a bit, or he had like a designated receiver that he knew he was going to right away, so we got the ball out quickly.
He was.
And of course, the one time that we didn't do that was the time where we got some pressure and Dillon reacted to it too late and tried to throw it away when he should have just tucked the ball and gone down and just accepted the fact that he was getting sacked. But he tried to be the hero again, and that led to the fumble happening when we could have avoided that situation. So that one I got to put partially on Dillon, because I went back and looked at that play. He basically, from the time he got the ball in his hands, he had about 4 seconds before the pressure was really getting to him. And so that's where he's got to be faster and be able to, know that, okay, my clock is up, time to, just get what I can and be safe,
Right. You're exactly right. On that play, that was him. That was another example of Dillon making a not having the right internal clock and making the wrong decision about what to do in that situation. And that's on him, no doubt. But I still expect more from Dana Holgorsen. I still expect him to be able to put we have some decent receivers, and yet apparently they can never get open. Now, you know what? There's enough simple patterns that you can throw, hitch patterns, square ends, curl routes, things like that you can come up with that are timing routes that will allow Dillon to get the ball out in 2.5 seconds, and that are going to be fairly low risk and help us march it down the field. And we did some of that early, like again on that first drive, we did that, and then that stuff just kind of goes away once they adjust. We are not able to adjust again, right? Like we have that wonderful first drive, and then the next series they can't run as well, and all of a sudden everybody's covered, or it must appear that everybody's covered because Dillon has no one to throw it to, or he's throwing it to a guy who's way behind the sticks, and we can't get a first down and we can't sustain drives.
Well, and let's give some credit to USC secondary, because that was something I was definitely noticing, especially in the second half, was they clearly had the speed to keep up with our wide receivers. And there were some times where the ball was, at a catchable for our wide receivers, but, their defender just got his hand in the way, right, and knocked the ball away. So some of that is just that USC is a talented team, and we were always going to struggle to get separation there.
Well, again, then you come up with an alternative. If you know that you don't have the one-on-one matchup that's going to lead to separation, then you come up with routes that are going to allow that receiver to get a timing route where he goes on a slant pattern and then he stops at a very specific spot that the quarterback knows where he is, and the ball's there. Boom, just like that. And it's either a pass completion or it's dropped and it's a pass incompletion, but it's not a throw it on the run, or whatever, or back shoulder throw, or some of those things that are more complicated. So in my opinion, we did not show the diversity on offense that we needed to sustain drives after they initially adjusted to what we were doing in the first drive. Because magically, all of a sudden, the running lanes weren't there. Again, Johnson was having to make a lot of the yards on his own, and there has to be able to be an ability to adjust, and our staff has failed in their efforts to do that. And so I still challenge them, and I'm saying so much about this, Alex, because that's my message for this week. This UCLA game is the most winnable game we have left. We have 3 football games left, and this one by far is the most winnable game we have. And so you better throw everything against the wall. Yes, you've got a freshman quarterback, and he's going to have limited things that he can do, but he's also got a skill set that's different than everything you have on film up to this point. So, you have the carte blanche to take some plays from your playbook, and you damn well better have some that take advantage of a guy who's athletic, that is going to pull a guard that leads the block on a pass play, on a rollout, so that he has some protection on to his backside, and he can roll out and have 1 or 2 options and then run it. Right? You split the field in half. He only has to look at 2 guys. If they're both covered, he tucks it and gets what he can, right? And you do those kinds of things, along with some more creative things in the running game, where you have some reads that he can do, because I know he's athletic enough. He's done some read option stuff in his high school career, even if he hasn't done it at Nebraska. So you damn well better have some of those things in your playbook. And if they don't, again, that's their fault. They should have prepared this team for the potential reality that Dylan was going to be unavailable.
Right. Well, because we've talked about that in several past podcasts about both Dylan being hurt or just Dylan getting sacked so much that it would benefit us to maybe bring in a more athletic quarterback like TJ. Now, unfortunately, that has come to pass. And of course, it was bad timing for TJ to get dropped in the middle of this game where we still had the lead at that point against USC. Right. Talk about pressure, and he did show some of the nerves that you'd expect from a true freshman, like us having to call a timeout to avoid a delay a game because he was slow getting off of it, or the muffed snap that happened at a really critical moment where we're having momentum on a drive. Some things of that nature. But on the positive side, like you're saying, we already saw even in this game, him being able to scramble much better out of situations than Dylan and get some positive yardage, those zone reads or run pass option type plays. He can run those and actually be a threat with his legs because he's got some speed that Dylan doesn't. So, I think that now that we, it's obviously terrible that Dylan has this bad injury and is getting surgery and everything. But on the other hand, it is almost refreshing in a way to know for a fact that Dylan's out for the season, and there's no mystery of like, well, maybe we bring Dylan in, if he's feeling better on the foot or whatever. It's like, no, okay, he's out. TJ's the guy. We're going to change the game plan around this. They're practicing with that all week. Like you say, it's not on film for UCLA to study, so we can throw some surprising things at them. So there's a world where this turns out well, but probably more likely is that, he struggles because he's been thrown in this situation. He's a true freshman, and we may lose these last 3 games.
Right. Well, and so again, another little caveat about the coaches. Okay. I get it. They played TJ in 2 games early in the season against inferior opponents, and he looked good in both of the mop-up duties that he had. And then they decided, well, maybe we're going to redshirt him. So they stopped getting him any snaps in the games, right? Because they had already used 2 of his available 4 games that he can play and still keep a redshirt. Well, that's a bad decision if he's your backup. If he's really and truly your backup quarterback. See, I was prepared for our third string guy to come in and execute much more like Dylan would have, right? Like, I mean, it has more of a Dylan grasp of the offense and understands football and has played a lot of football. Granted, it was at the NAIA level, but he's played a lot of football. And, we could have had some, with as seldom as we throw the ball deep, the fact that Grayson didn't have, and I know I'm butchering his name.
You mean Jalen Gramstad?
Gramstad, thank you. Maybe you go with him. And if that wasn't the thought, then why in the heck were you trying to redshirt TJ? You needed to be getting him snaps every week in practice. You needed him to be getting ready for the possibility that Dylan would get hurt. And if you hadn't thought about that, certainly, absolutely, positively, after your quarterback got sacked 9 times at Minnesota, you damn well better have started doing it. Right. And so this idea that this guy hasn't had any snaps in practice is mind-boggling to me, and another example of our coaching staff making bad decisions as a staff, strategically and tactically, to prepare this team for success.
I see. So if you choose a redshirt player, they can't even practice?
No, they absolutely can. But if you know you're not gonna, they absolutely practice. But if you know you're not gonna be playing him in those games unless Dylan gets hurt, then he's not getting many snaps with the first team. He's getting a lot of snaps with the second team. But what was one of the most critical plays there in the last drive? It was the stumble on the 4th down.
Right.
And I know, I think you've said you think it was Johnson tripping on his own feet, but I don't believe that. My watch of that play is that he and TJ rubbed legs, because again, how many times has he had the opportunity to be running with the first offense and handing off to Johnson so that he would know how Johnson moves, he would know the spacing, and all those things would be normal, right? Would be something that would have had enough repetitions in practice that kind of little collision doesn't happen, because our offensive line on that play had moved the pile. That was going to be a first down if he doesn't stumble. And we still have 1 minute and 37 seconds to drive that ball down and potentially score and win the game. But instead, 4th down, the game's over, because and Johnson felt horrible, because I think he knew it too. He knew that he was going to get the first down if he doesn't trip over his own feet, right? And it was because he kind of got squeezed a little bit by TJ. These are the little things. These are the details. This is the Nick Saban stuff, okay, that Coach Rule has not yet figured out. And part of that is you got to have the right coordinators who understand that, okay? And the problem, I think Dana Holgerson is a very good coordinator. He's not a Big Ten coordinator. He doesn't understand the importance of the power running game and how you must have enough running complexity and feature that you can be successful, okay? And we have about 5 running plays, and we keep running the same damn plays over and over and over again with only slight variations, okay? You need more than that. You need plays with lead blocking. You don't have any. Okay. We hardly ever put Raiola under center. I mean, you could probably count on one hand in any given game the number of times that he took a snap under center.
Yes.
That's unacceptable in the Big Ten.
Well, but plenty of other teams in the Big Ten are always in shotgun too. It's not like
no. But
we're the only ones that do that.
Trust me. I'm not saying you don't go in a shotgun, Alex. I'm saying you have enough variety in your offense that you can go under center. I guarantee you, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, all of them. And you know when they do it? When they have a lead in the 3rd quarter, guess what starts to happen? They bring in a fullback, and they start taking snaps from center, and they start playing some power football. Okay, not all the time, but some of the time, and they have enough aptitude at it that they can be successful. Okay.
Okay.
We don't have that. We don't even have a fullback on our roster.
Right. All right. Let me make two final points, and then we'll move on here. Just one point. I totally agree with your criticism about them not practicing TJ with the first team in practice, knowing that he was the next guy up as the backup quarterback. I agree that was a mistake. In terms of not playing him in games, I can't really blame them for that because all of our games have been so close, right? We haven't had a lead against any team that you'd be comfortable enough to bring in the second team guy to give him some snaps if they weren't going to redshirt him, right? So I don't blame them on that front.
But if you need to have a second team guy ready, then you give him one series in the second quarter. It allows you.
When have we done that? The past 10 years, not in a game that we were clearly winning, right? When have we done that in a game when we were competitive, right, where we bring in the second team guy out of nowhere?
When have we had a good coach?
But I'm saying in general, I never see a team bring in the second team guy unless they're up significantly.
Well, see, I don't have a bunch of examples, but I bet you I could come up with them with Iowa, with any team, with Minnesota, Wisconsin when they were good, when the
all right.
I mean, all of those guys. I bet I could come up with examples.
Well, actually, so we're going to be together this weekend because Dad's coming down to LA for the UCLA game. So you'll have to do some research in next podcast so you can present your findings about how common this is, because I'm calling BS. And point two, I just pulled up on my phone that last play where Emmett Johnson tripped, and they had a nice overhead direct shot of, because it was a 4th and 1 play. And I've rewatched it a couple times. Emmett tripped over his own feet. I don't see any indication that TJ got in his way. So
okay, well, you may be right.
And I'm not going to get mad. I'm not blaming Emmett for that one because obviously he's been incredible. He's been our offensive powerhouse this whole season. So it sucks that he makes a mistake on that one play that could have been a big deal, but we still had a long ways to go. No guarantee we get a touchdown on that drive or anything.
That's correct.
But could have kept the series alive.
But so my message is this UCLA week, it's about the coaches. It's on them. They better be working 24 hours a day. I don't want them sleeping. I don't want them leaving the goddamn offices. They have to have the best offensive game plan, the best defensive game plan, and they have to have thought of everything so they're not wasting timeouts because they don't know what the hell they're going to do. Okay, I'm tired of the stupid timeouts. I'm tired of the team not knowing the circumstance and situation. Okay, that's the kind of crap. It's just ridiculous. Like when we had we were going to go for it on 4th down, and the clock was running down, so we had to call a timeout because TJ was in, and then we kick a field goal.
Right. We go for a 52-yarder, which our field goal kicker has made one of earlier this year.
One time.
And he missed it. And I agree with you.
It's 38 degrees outside. It's 38 degrees outside.
Right. In that situation, you definitely go for it because we're in a good position on the field. And you have not only TJ who could run the ball, but you also have Heinrich Harburg, who we've brought in on those 4th and 1 situations in the past.
Thank you for saying what I wanted to say. Yes. and see, to me, that's the part of strategy and tactical information. And you have to have that stuff at your disposal. Okay. And if you are not thinking of it because, you're an offensive coordinator, you're in the moment, you need to have discussed that among your offensive staff and with your head coach, that somebody is reminding you, hey, we can run Harburg in this situation. We've had to call the timeout because the clock went down. Why don't we do X? Why don't we do Y? And oh, by the way, it's 38 degrees outside, and this is our field goal kicker who has, at best, made one 52-yarder. No, you do not kick there. Heavy ball. No. Okay. That is a horrible tactical error. That's Matt Rule's fault. He's the head coach. He's the guy making that decision. That's his fault. Okay. And that's why I say he's a poor game day coach. Love Matt Rule. I think he's 95% of what he's doing for Nebraska is cutting edge, wonderful. Love the man. I think he's going to be a great head coach, but he needs help. He still needs help with somebody telling him what to do during a game because he's poor at it. He's just poor at it.
Right. Okay.
I wish he would listen to our podcast.
We got to send it to him,
We should.
So the UCLA game is obviously up next. Like you say, it's the most winnable game left on our schedule, so it's a big one, even though it's an away game, and they had a bye this past week. According to Vegas, UCLA is 2.5 favorites, so they're thinking it's going to be a close game, but UCLA has the edge. I was reminded, talking to the guy who was next to me in the bar, that Nico Amayeva, or however you pronounce his last name, was hurt in a previous game, but he did play in their game against Indiana where they got their butts kicked. So I hope that John Butler has some good blitz packages prepared, and hopefully we can hit him and maybe get him out of the game by re-injuring what he banged up before.
Well, or just have him play poorly. I don't know about re-injuring anything. We don't want to hope that somebody gets hurt. But yes, I understand what you're saying. Make him ineffectual.
If Dylan's ankle thing wasn't that serious and he was playing in this UCLA game, all those UCLA coaches would be saying, if you get to him, make sure you twist that leg a little bit. That's what happens.
Absolutely. But you don't voice it. You don't articulate it.
I see. I'm being the bad boy here.
You're being the bad boy. I love it that you're being the bad boy.
I'm going to try to be positive here because, like you say, if we can't beat UCLA, we do have a bye after that before we play Penn State, but it is away at Penn State, and they were competitive at least in the first half against Ohio State this past weekend.
Well, and they have to play Indiana.
Yes.
And then
they play Michigan State. I remember we looked it up.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing is, by the time they get to our game, if they haven't beaten Indiana or Michigan State, then this is going to be their final chance for a win.
Right.
They do play Rutgers. Their last game is Rutgers, which is also a chance for a win. But bottom line is, after this Indiana game this weekend, if they lose that game, they're going to be looking at it and saying, okay, we're now staring at 6 losses.
Right.
And we have 3 wins and 6 losses, and we have 3 games left: Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers. And if we win those 3 games, we're bowl eligible.
Yep.
And they reset the priority of their season based on that.
Right. Well, but can the interim coach get buy-in from the players on that when they were before the season, being hyped up as a potential playoff contender, national championship contender caliber team? Now to be like, oh, we're fighting just to get 6 wins. You got to sell the team on that.
You do. You're right. And I'm with you on that. But my whole point is, I don't think our trip to Happy Valley. Now, if we were playing them in Lincoln, I could see them more likely to mail it in. But they're going to be playing in Happy Valley. Okay. I don't know if it's senior day, but it probably is, because that's our luck. And so, those guys will be, playing as hard as they could possibly play. So Nebraska fans better not count on the fact that, Penn State's going to be mailing it in because they don't care. I guarantee you that's not going to be the case in that game. But back to the UCLA game, this is our chance. This is our opportunity, and we better take advantage of it.
And my hope is that while TJ showed some of his, true freshman nerves that would be expected for being thrust into this massive game, in under the lights, blackout day environment, right? Obviously a lot of pressure. I'm hoping that with this week of practice, he gets to practice as the clear first team guy. He knows he's the guy. He'll get to calm his nerves a bit. We know that UCLA has not been selling out their stadium, so it's not going to be the most hostile environment he'll be going into. There should be some Nebraska fans there. So my hope is that he gets to show off some of the skills we did see him show in those earlier games in this season, and that the coaches come up with a good game plan. I saw our defense take a step up in this USC game in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting. So if we could slow USC down to that extent, I think we could slow down UCLA as well. Give Nico some trouble passing the ball. But we need, we need to have the offense clicking better than it was in the second half of the USC game. If we're seeing more of the same there, we're going to lose. But I'm going to presume that we've got that somewhat figured out, and that we win a close one. Let's say it won't be super high scoring, but let's say it's 24 Nebraska to 19 UCLA.
I love it. That's okay. So a couple of things. After me browbeating on the coaching staff, I hope they hear the message. I hope they are hearing it themselves. I hope Matt Rule is delivering the message to his staff and to himself. Okay, that he's challenging himself, because this is the chance. And you're absolutely right. Here's the bottom line, though. Our defensive coordinator, he has to prepare a game plan that allows us to stop the run. Okay, I don't care if the guy makes some pass plays. Okay, you can't, we have good defensive backs. Trust them to go man to man, so we can add another guy to the box, and we can absolutely positively have a second level of linebackers, and we can stop the damn run. If we stop the run, then I think we have a chance to win this game. So I'm going to assume that our defensive coordinator has the ability to have a brain, and he can figure out that he has to stop the run. And if he does that, then we're going to win the game. But it is going to be a close game, like you say. I think it's going to be 21-19. I'm gonna do your same score, except that I'm going to say it's 21 instead of 24. And we're gonna nip this thing out, because we are going to have 10, maybe 15,000 Nebraska fans there, maybe even more. And I don't know how much UCLA's fans are going to be invested in this particular game. They're going to be celebrating the
Dodgers.
When is the Dodgers parade?
Well, it was today.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow, that was fast. Shoot. I thought it would take them a little longer to get that thing organized. So I don't know. Maybe there'll be more rabid UCLA fans there than I was hoping. And it is a night game, so all the students will be there. So again, doesn't work in our favor that it's a night game, but it's good for us since we're going to the game. That'll be a fun day.
Yes.
But I think we can win this game. And if Rule is a decent game day coach on Saturday, and his coordinators, Dana Holgerson, very highly respected, and Butler, young but respected, if they do their jobs and earn their paycheck, we win this football game.
All right. And just quick mention of the women's volleyball team, as we've been giving updates on them throughout the season. They had a big match against Wisconsin, who has been a past rival for Nebraska in the Big Ten. And we had a close first set with them, but managed to squeak that one out, and then won the following two sets more dominantly each time. So closed that one out with a 3-0, and did similar against Oregon, also closing that one out with a 3-0. So this volleyball team is looking like something special. They're looking like the clear number one team in the country, it would appear.
Well, yeah, they are definitely special. They have weaknesses, though, and actually these last two matches kind of exposed it a little bit. Our passing, which has historically been one of our greatest strengths in the John Cook era, has shown cracks here in these last couple of matches. So I'm going to be curious to see if, after a week of maybe more focus and emphasis on improving our serving and improving our our serve reception, our passing, that we end up coming out this week. We have another one of those unique weekends where we have a home game and an away game. It's a split weekend. So we play Illinois at home, and then we play Minnesota on Saturday, when we're going to be out there in LA. In the morning, we're gonna be seeing that game. So, or I guess early afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see. But this Minnesota team that we're playing on Saturday is a top 25 team, quite talented, has gone through the ringer. They've lost 4 starters, Alex. In volleyball, they've lost
Wow.
4 starters to injuries for the season. So they're playing. They basically have like one senior who's great, Hansen, and maybe one other upperclassman, and then everyone else is a freshman because all their frontline players have gotten hurt for the season. So they are a shell of what they would have been. So we should get away with 2 more victories. But I want us not only to do that, but we need to demonstrate that we can pass, because I guarantee you teams are really going to come after us now that we've shown a crack in the armor.
Two Nebraska related news pieces we should mention. One is that before the USC game, it was announced that Matt Rule got a contract extension, same price tag, but extended for the next another 2 years to the 2032 season, and with a stipulation in his contract that Matt Rule owes $15 million to Nebraska, basically, if he leaves this year. So that was obviously in response to Matt's name coming up so much in the Penn State conversation and solidifying him for the future at Nebraska, giving confidence to recruits and to our current players, just to say, hey, Matt is staying here for the long term. Don't worry. So in terms of stability for the program, I think that was a good thing.
Absolutely. I agree. And even though I've spent most of this podcast being very animated in my criticism of Matt and his staff, I think he is overall a great leader and organizer. He just needs to make better decisions, and if he needs help, another person in the ear, so to speak, so that he can make those decisions on game day, then he needs to find the person that can do that. And it doesn't have to be another assistant, associate, head coach. It can be a GA that has a brain and that can just see things from a distance and give him a couple of reminders, right?
Yep.
Because I think after the fact, he often says the right things. After the fact, he acknowledges the mistakes that were made and the wasted timeouts, and he's frustrated with them too. Except they keep happening,
Right.
So fix it, and that's what he needs to do. So I'm still a believer in Matt Rule. I don't know if his coordinators are the right fit, because I hate what I'm seeing with the unimaginative offense and the confusing and nondescript defensive philosophy that we are implementing right now, which I have a hard time even comprehending, because it's just inviting people to run the football. So in a league where that is fundamental. So I need those guys to wake up and be more intelligent.
And then just today, as we're recording this on Monday, November 3rd, it was announced that we have a new commit for our 2027 class, a 4-star wide receiver named Tay Ellis, who's quite well regarded. So another feather in our cap for that 2027 class, which is nice to see.
Yeah, our 2027 class is coming together quite nicely. And it sure looks like the quarterback that is the centerpiece of that class is just having a remarkable year. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I hope, and that's another reason why the stability of Matt Rule, because at the end of the day, maybe Butler's defense works if we had 3 or 4 defensive tackles along the level of talent of a Ty Robinson and a Nash Huntmacher like we did last year. If we had those 2 guys with 1 more year of eligibility, we might be undefeated right now.
Right. Well, and you just remind me of one thing I wanted to bring up earlier. But let's say we're thinking positive here, and TJ settles down and plays well in these last 3 games, and Dana makes some adjustments to his offense to compensate for the fact that TJ is the quarterback, and we win all 3. And we finish out the season strong with a 9-3 record. Then that is interesting. And then we play a bowl game after that. Let's say, for the sake of our argument, we win that too. Okay, so we have a great end to our season. Now there's a real quarterback battle in the offseason, right, between TJ and Dylan in that world.
Absolutely. If we were to be able to win this weekend, and that momentum, because I laugh, but I could see it, Alex. You find a way to win this UCLA game. Then you have 2 weeks, because of the bye week, to prepare for a Penn State team that definitely has not had the season they were hoping they would have, right? So, maybe you get to go to a Penn State stadium that isn't quite as intimidating as it might have otherwise been. And you're able to execute now with a little bit more repetitions with this new quarterback, and you're able to, do some things, right? And Penn State's only going to have one game film to evaluate, right? They really are only going to have one game film. That's not a lot to go on. And so, boom, all of a sudden you beat Penn State. Now you get to come home, right, and play the final game against an Iowa team that, even though they've been, quote, quote, the more highly regarded team for most of the last decade, right? We get to play them at home, and maybe we surprise them. So I could see that actually playing out if we win this weekend.
That's the big if. On the national side of things, of course, we talked last week about Brian Kelly being fired at LSU, and we had mentioned that, there's got to be something more going on than what we in the public know, because, he's been too successful in general to get fired in this way in the middle of their season, where they could still, turn it around. And it sounds like there is some of that. He was apparently fired somewhat for cause, because of, some sort of moral related thing. So they're going to try to pay him less of the money than he's owed in his contract, but apparently he may sue about that. So that's all a mess.
Well, is this the athletic director?
No, this is Brian Kelly.
This is Brian Kelly.
Yes, I saw they were trying to pay him like $27 million instead of $51 million because of some sort of thing that Brian Kelly allegedly did, but he's fighting it, basically.
Some kind of a breach of contract thing.
Yes. So that's messy in of itself. Then the athletic director who initially hired Brian Kelly has been fired. So now they're going to bring in a new guy to lead this coaching search for the new head coach. And Louisiana's governor has been heavily involved in all this and spouting off a lot, which I think, regardless of politics, it's never a good idea for the governor to be, heavily involved in like a head coaching situation. It just makes things messy.
Well, as Nebraska fans, we have to tread lightly here, Alex, because our current governor, was formerly on the Board of Regents for the university for a long time, and is a former football player who played at the university and was quite successful there, right? So he has always been strongly connected to the football program and the athletic department in general. He was a member of the Board of Regents for a long time before he became governor of our state. He has been accused of meddling in Nebraska sports a little too much himself. So, we're not casting too many stones there, but this, I totally agree with you. And it's not the first time that the Louisiana governor has gotten overly involved in the situations at the university. There was a governor not too many years ago at Louisiana State, in the state of Louisiana, that threatened to cancel football season because the athletic department was so poorly run and was literally $100 and some million in debt. It almost went bankrupt. And I think the state had to basically bail them out a little bit to keep them from going bankrupt on their obligations.
I see.
This is an athletic department that has a history.
Right. Right. Okay. I mean, yeah, if it's getting to the point where the state has to bail out, the athletic department or the university, okay, then I can see the governor, getting involved and saying comments and things like that. So that's fair. And then Auburn played this weekend against Kentucky and lost in what must have been an exhilarating game, 10-3. And they decided to fire Hugh Freeze, who's been the coach there for 3 years. Auburn's currently 4-5, and his past records were 6-7 and 5-7 before now being 4-5. So not too surprising, not trending in a great direction there. I think his buyout was something like $13 million, so not as crazy as some of these other ones we've seen. So yeah, can't say I'm too surprised about that one.
No, I'm not surprised. Other than the fact that if you look at Auburn's schedule and you look at what the expectations were for the program going into the season, I don't know that this record is necessarily way off of what likely most prognosticators would have projected for Auburn this year. And you got a coach that's in his third year, and this is clearly going to be a coaching cycle this year that is going to be crazy, especially at the top. So if you're Auburn and you think you're a legitimate, top destination job, are you sure you want to enter into the marketplace this year? So to me, it seems odd only from a timing standpoint. Why do you do it this year, knowing what you already know about what's involved?
Right. Well, and you do have a point, because I'm looking back at their schedule. So the Kentucky loss is obviously a tough loss. That's a team that,
tough loss.
From their perspective, they shouldn't lose. But before that, they lost to Missouri, Georgia, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, all of which were basically 7 to 10 point type range. So not like they're getting blown out embarrassingly. They're playing pretty close, but they're always losing. Which, admittedly, that's right. A bit of the Mike Riley effect, right? Like, he was close with a lot of those teams, but we still found a way to lose, right?
Right. And then and that same disease continued throughout the Scott Frost era, and even worse, and has continued during the Matt Rule era until this year. And we won a few of them, a few close games until this past weekend, where we botched this USC game. But again, you have to look at that. That's just like, Nebraska fans are going to be confronted with this next year, because our schedule next year is brutal, and we could be a way better team next year and still have the same record or worse than what we end up with this year.
Yep. Yeah. Well, right. But that, of course, that also gets into expectations, because now, although I know you don't like to hear this, but Nebraska isn't the powerhouse it used to be. And we've, sucked for 10 years and been mediocre before that for another 10 years. Whereas Auburn, has national championships, in their not too distant memory. Yep. Expectations of competing for the SEC championship and beating Alabama, et cetera, et cetera. So,
right.
They have more recent success to look back to and be like, how have we fallen this far this quick?
I agree. Well, and I don't know about their NIL money, right? How much have they been putting towards their roster? What is their, do they have a $30 million roster? Do they have a $20 million roster? What kind of roster do they have? And if they have a $20 million roster in a league filled with schools that are spending 35 to 40, then that's a problem, right? And nothing any coach is going to do is going to change the discrepancy of talent.
Now talking about the big games from this past week, we did predict the Vanderbilt-Texas game. You went Texas's way, saying they would win 28-21. I thought Vanderbilt had it, and I was riding some good momentum, and that they would win 35-21. The final score ended up being Texas 34, Vanderbilt 31. So if you added 10 points to mine, reverse the teams, I guess that'd be right. But yeah, it was pretty rough, where literally the first play of the game basically was a Texas run for 75 yards for a touchdown. So Vanderbilt got off to an awful start, but actually scored 21 unanswered points in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes left, and they nearly got an onside kick. The Texas guy touched it but messed it up, and Vanderbilt had a shot at falling on the ball, but then it rolled out of bounds. They would have only had 30 seconds left, so still would have been a tall order there, but Vanderbilt made it interesting.
Exactly. And you look at what happened there in that end, and you realize Vanderbilt was for real. And if they had been able to get the wheels rolling a little faster, that might have been a different outcome. Because Texas was winning. When was the last score Texas had? Like they went like half the game without scoring.
Well,
it was 34-0, 34 to whatever, to 10, I guess, or 7.
Well, it was 34-10 with 10 minutes left of the fourth. That was right before Vanderbilt scored a touchdown. I think Texas definitely scored in the second half. They scored in
They did.
Late third quarter, early fourth quarter, I think. Somewhere in there, they definitely did. To defend myself a little bit as well, we thought that Arch Manning might be too hurt to play in that game, but it turned out that he did play. So that gives me at least a little bit of a excuse to fall back on there, that I didn't expect that.
Right. I understand. Texas is breathing a sigh of relief that they got out of there with a win.
Yep. And then the other one we predicted was Tennessee, Oklahoma. We both went Tennessee's way. I said 38-27. You said 35-17 over Oklahoma. But that actually went the Sooners' way, 33-27. So closer to my score there, but once again for the other team. And I watched the recap of that game, and that one was pretty interesting. Both teams had quite a few turnovers. Tennessee had 3, Oklahoma had 2. But one of Tennessee's was a pick 6. So Oklahoma got some easy points there. Oklahoma's field goal kicker is very good. I think he made 2 55-yard field goals in that game. It was actually Oklahoma up 26-24 with 2 minutes left in the game. So Oklahoma got a big run to score a touchdown, and then Tennessee got the ball back and got a field goal off of that. So it was a pretty crazy end of the game where Tennessee could have potentially made a comeback, but couldn't quite pull it off.
Yep. And that might have saved Oklahoma coach's job. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, and it's ironic because I predicted both Oklahoma and Texas to lose, the two teams that, of course, played each other in the Red River shootout, which, didn't end up looking very impressive for Oklahoma, but they're bouncing back here.
Right. They are. And, again, just a FYI, I bet you it wasn't 38 degrees when that field goal kicker was kicking those 55-yard field goals.
No, I'm sure it wasn't. And then the biggest surprise game was NC State versus Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, who was undefeated and the leader in the ACC. NC State beat them 48-36. And I watched the recap of that game as well. And frankly, there wasn't anything super crazy like, crazy turnovers or special teams plays. No. Really just not good defensive play by Georgia Tech. You can't let NC State score nearly 50 points on you.
Right. And that's the thing. That wasn't just some fluky deal. That was North Carolina State scoring points and then scoring some more, then scoring again. It was NC State executing and following their game plan, and Georgia Tech not doing that.
Right.
It wasn't like Georgia Tech turned the ball over 4 times, I guess is my point.
Yes. And to add to that, in the ACC, Miami lost again to SMU in overtime, 26-20. SMU actually missed a 42-yard field goal in the fourth quarter, but then the field goal kicker redeemed himself, kicked one at the very end of regulation to tie the ball game, and then they got an interception on Miami's overtime possession, which then made it pretty easy for them to score and just end the game right there.
That's a big loss for Miami. They were in the driver's seat to some extent, and they now aren't. totally changes the complexion of the rest of their season. And this is after they've beat Florida and they've beat Florida State. They beat I think South Florida. I mean, they were recapturing all the momentum about the state of Florida. That huge in recruiting and everything like that. And then they lay this egg.
Right. Well, but they lost a week or 2 weeks before that as well. So this wasn't their first loss.
It's their second loss. But that's my point. They were ranked in the top 10, maybe top 5, if I remember correctly.
Oh no. Well, they were still ranked 10th going up against SMU. Right. So yeah, before that they were top 5.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah. And then last one, I guess the ACC was the place to watch this past weekend. Duke beat Clemson 46-45 in a pretty crazy game. It was actually Duke got off to an early lead, but then Clemson came back, so it's tied 28-28 at halftime. Duke got a special teams win off of a kickoff touchdown, so that obviously helped them out. And they actually were down to a fourth and 10 at the end of the game when they were down a touchdown to Clemson, and they didn't get the pass, but it was called for pass interference, which was obviously huge, gave them an automatic first down. They were near the goal line, so from there they scored, and they decided to pull a Tom Osborne. They went for 2 just to decide the game right then and there. They got it, so they win by 1. And it's the first time Duke has beaten Clemson since 1980.
Wow. Wow. That's wild. Not that Dabo's going to get fired, but if Penn State is striking out with the Urban Meyers and the Nick Sabans of the world, and they're looking at a choice between a guy like Dirkowitz at Missouri or the Arizona State head coach, who are 2 younger up-and-coming coaches, or going after a Dabo Swinney, I might kick the tires on that idea, because I think Dabo would say yes, be able to hit the reset button that has happened at Clemson and still be in a blue blood like Penn State with the resources of the Big Ten. Dabo might very much be intrigued by that, and it would allow him to comfortably reset his own philosophy as it relates to NIL and revenue share and all that stuff, and kind of get a jump start.
Right. Well, and there's a world where I think Clemson fans would be super pissed about that and view it as the ultimate betrayal after everything is done at Clemson. But given how the season has been going and some of the negativity there, maybe it would almost be like a mutual parting, like, okay, rather than us firing you or whatever, let's just go our separate ways, and we both press the reset button, like you say.
Right. Oh, I think that's exactly what would happen. I don't think there would be a bunch of Clemson people feeling like he left them at the altar, so to speak, or something. I think they would be happy to see new blood and a change taking place in the leadership at Clemson. And thank you very much for, your incredible history and tradition that you built here. But, the game has moved past you, and we think we need to go in a new direction. And then that would give Dabo the freedom to do what he wants. And maybe that ends up being LSU or, any of the big jobs that are open this year. But I don't know, Auburn, that would allow him to get back into the SEC. You remember, Dabo is an Alabama guy, right? He played and coached as an assistant at Alabama.
Now looking ahead to week 11 of college football, maybe the biggest game is in the Big 12. BYU is playing against Texas Tech. BYU is one of the few undefeated teams left in the country now, though that is a home game for Texas Tech. So what do you think about that one? Sounds like maybe you're not a believer in BYU.
I'm not, and I'm disappointed that he, as a new member of the Big 12, they somehow magically got this schedule. Okay, they've played a couple of tough opponents, but they've also avoided some of the tougher teams as well. And I really, since it's a home game for Texas Tech, I I want Texas Tech to win this game, so I'm going to say Texas Tech is going to win it. It's a Big 12 game, so there'll be some scoring in there. So I'm going to say it's going to be, let's see here, 42-38 Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. BYU did beat Utah and Iowa State.
Yep.
And Utah just beat Cincinnati 45-14 this past weekend. So Utah's legit. So that's a good win under their belt.
Absolutely. But they haven't played Arizona State and, Iowa State, especially when BYU played them. I feel like Iowa State's playing better football now. My perception of Iowa State was that they were good, but not all that special. And the BYU beating Utah, that's impressive. Okay. Cause I know Utah's good.
Well, I will say I just looked it up. Texas Tech played against Kansas State this past weekend and beat them, while BYU had a bye. So while it is a home game for Texas Tech, the fact that BYU had a bye to heal up and prepare for this game, I think I'll reverse your score. I'll go ahead and say BYU wins 42-38.
Okay. So classic Big 12 score fest.
Sure thing.
Either way.
And then there are some other good games. In the SEC, we've got Texas A&M versus Missouri and LSU Alabama. Another one that we have some interest in the Big Ten, considering we play them later this year, is Oregon versus Iowa. It is a home game for Iowa, and Iowa had a bye week this past week. So do you give them any shot going up against the Ducks?
Oh, absolutely, I do. You look at what Iowa's done in recent weeks, and I say they look like one of the best teams in the Big Ten. And so is Oregon, though. But like almost all the West Coast schools, they have struggled when coming across the country. Now, the good news for them is Iowa's still in the Central Time Zone, so they're not having to go across 3 time zones to do it. And the game is early in the day, so it's not going to disrupt their sleep cycle situation. Oregon should be reasonably prepared for that. Oregon's the more talented team, but Iowa has the ability to make everyone look ugly. And so I think they're going to do that again this weekend. I think Iowa's on a roll. They're playing efficient offense, which is a new thing for them, and their defense is classically great. So I'm going to say Iowa's going to win this thing, and it's going to be like 23-17.
If they can hold Oregon's offense to 17, that would be impressive.
Well, Oregon, they're gonna shorten the game, Alex. Instead of Oregon getting 11 possessions, Oregon's going to get about 7.
Yep,
maybe 8.
Well, I will say I looked it up. So Oregon also had a bye this past week. So both teams are equal there. So no real advantage. It is a home game for Iowa. And there's the point about the travel that you brought up. But I'm going to say, I just feel like, teams like Iowa and Indiana, they look really good, really solid against a lot of Big Ten teams. But then they go up against a big boy and sometimes get embarrassed. You'll recall that happening with Indiana against Ohio State, or also I think Iowa, right, against Ohio State in like a past Big Ten championship game I can recall. Now, this year Iowa has more offense than they had in those past years, so I do get your point there that maybe they've turned a corner, and maybe I'll eat these words. But I'm going to say that Oregon's talent shows out and shows that there's a limit to how high Iowa can go. And Oregon wins, let's say, 35-21 over Iowa.
I like it. I hope you're right and I'm wrong. This is a situation where, since we're not putting money on this, especially, I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
Right, because we play Iowa later this year and we don't play Oregon.
Exactly. And I hate Iowa.
Of course. All right. Well, there you go. That was another episode of College Football Throwdown in the books. Hopefully, we'll be doing an in-person podcast next week, since, as we mentioned, we'll be together. So that'll be fun. And hopefully, we're talking about Nebraska's win over UCLA, and Dad can give some praise to Dana Holgerson for once. Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be wonderful. I have given praise to him earlier in the season when we were kicking ass on the against those lesser teams, and I was complimenting them right and left about how they were getting multiple units in, and we weren't missing a beat. You remember that when we
I
were
remember.
getting a bunch of guys playing time and all that? I was very complimentary then, but what I expected was that Dana's offense would continue to expand, and it hasn't. Okay,
Right.
he's doing the same shit, and you can't do that. Again, I'm going to reference Tom Osborne. His offense always expanded throughout the season. Every week there were 4 or 5 new plays that they may have been practicing since preseason camp, but they had never shown them on film until week 6, week 8. Okay, I mean, that is the way you build an offense. So you're always unveiling new stuff. And
Right.
I just don't see that with Dana.
And I do agree with that, though. Wouldn't you also say that the complexity of the game has increased? So maybe that's harder to do now than it was in Osborne's era?
Um, except for the fact that with the complexity of, route trees and things like that from the passing game, there's so many ways that you can modify and create a complementary play to something you've been doing all season, right? Where you've been doing a pattern where you go out and go up and out, and all of a sudden you decide that you're going to go up and in on this particular week, and you rep it. You've repped both ways, but you've never shown the up and in, right? And so then this defensive back who's seen this on film, he's prepared for you all week, and he expects that receiver to cut out, and the guy cuts in, and he's a half a step or a full step slow when that guy does that for the first time, and that's a big play for you, right? That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about.
Right. I see. Okay. Well, let's see what we see this weekend, and hopefully we're coming back with good news. So if you out there enjoyed listening to this podcast, you can email us at collegefootballthrowdown@gmail.com. You can also find us if you search for College Football Throwdown on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or you can subscribe to our new, relatively new YouTube channel where we upload all the podcasts. You can leave us a rating or a comment there. We always love hearing feedback from the fans. So thank you out there for listening, and thank you, Dad, for joining me for this episode. Until next time, go Big Red.
Go Big Red. And Alex, let's get this in Coach Rule's hands.
Let's do it.